More and more young men YOLO into the markets, and they are doing this because they know that's their only chance. Their only chance to get the life they really want. And they know if they cannot provide a certain lifestyle, they will not attract any woman for a committed relationship, and they will never get married or have a family. They know if they don't become rich, they will stay alone, and no one will be there for them when they are old and sick. The big players in this world do not want you to own anything. They don't want you to own real estate because they want to own everything. They want you to pay them rent for an apartment, which is not your apartment, but you can live in there as long as you pay them rent. With that money, they buy more and more apartments to rent them to more and more people and make more and more money. That's capitalism. The American dream already costs $4.5 million. What's the American dream? A house with a garden, 2 kids who attend private school, 2 new cars every 10 or 12 years, a dog, a cat, and some nice family vacations at least twice a year. Doesn't actually sound like that much, does it? But it costs $4.5 million. When you start from nothing as a young man, you cannot make that amount of money. Especially not when you spend half of your salary for the rent and the other half of it for groceries and clothing. Maybe if you have a great job, if you're really ambitious, you are able to save a few $1,000s a year, maybe even $10,000 or $20,000 a year. But even then, this dream will stay a dream. In Europe, it's the same. The European dream is very similar to the American dream, just a little bit smaller. Well, not in the country, but in all the big cities, in most of them. So let's say you have €500,000, which is about the same value as $500,000. What can you get for $500,000 in a big city? If you are lucky, you get a 90 square meter apartment, which is about 1,000 square feet, large enough to live in with a wife and 2 kids, but small enough to constantly get on each other's nerves and have no space for any hobbies or any kind of privacy. And even such an apartment is out of the question for many people. You can rent such an apartment if you work hard enough, but you will never be able to buy such an apartment. Especially in the times where the banks charge so much for the loans. I checked the loan rates recently, and the cheapest offer basically said I wouldn't need to pay the bank back almost twice as much money as I borrowed from them. I'm not so stupid. So if I would finance such an apartment over time, I would finance another apartment for the bank. I'm not going to do so. This is the world we are living in. In former times, the banks were there to support people and make their dreams possible. Not so anymore. In the last 2 decades, taxpayers had to bail out the banks 3 times. 3 times the banks failed, 3 times the banks collapsed, and the taxpayer paid them out. But, of course, we're not getting that money back. So even if you work hard, you will never owe property. You will never owe your own home. And if you do manage to finance your own home, it's probably not something worth working for the whole life, with a large loan on the bank, constantly in stress, constantly reminding you that if you lose your job, you lose everything. I understand why so many people, especially young people, are so upset with rich people. It's just not fair. Rich people look down on poor people as if they were just too lazy and too stupid to become rich. But the truth is, most of them never had a chance. The times to become wealthy are mostly over if you start from nothing. Young men know this, and this is why they YOLO into the markets, in cryptos and stocks. They know It's their only chance. Staying poor is guaranteed, and they don't have anything to lose. If the investment fails and the money is gone, it doesn't change much from them. Women have it a bit easier, not all of them, but the pretty ones. The ones who are attractive to men. They can easily find a wealthy man to spend their lives with when they look good enough. A man who will provide for lifestyle they could not afford on their own. I have seen this with my very own eyes on a whole generation of mothers, on my mother, but also at most of the mothers from my schoolmates. They all had lower class jobs with a low income, or they were housewives and they just cared for the kids, so which in the 1980s meant putting your kid in front of the TV. But they all had a relatively luxurious life they wouldn't be able to afford on their own. Nowadays, it's not so easy anymore, because there are less and less men who actually make good money. And when it comes to lifestyle and the quality of your home, the golden times are long gone. What used to be middle class in the 1990s had become luxury in the 2020s. In the 80s, a hard-working man could easily finance a small house with a garden or a large city apartment in a nice neighborhood. Not anymore. The hard-working man today cannot afford such a thing. This is also very disappointing for women, because there are less and less true wealthy men. So many women make their own money and they make their own career instead of becoming mothers and housewives, because the job of being a mother is just not worth it anymore. Nice to be a mother, but not in poverty. So they rather make career themselves. Egg freezing has become a $1 trillion business. $1 trillion business. These companies sell the dream of having a child later, when it is time to do so. Once your career is on a level, you can actually afford having a child, and not before that. Problem is, most of the times, it doesn't work. Only the most beautiful women will be able to get a high-quality man. One of the top 5 or the top 1%. One who plays in the top league. One who has a house with a large garden and a swimming pool. One who would buy her an SUV for her birthday along with some nice jewelry and an Italian handbag. And young men know that. They're not stupid. All they want is a beautiful wife. That's all they want. But the path and the work to get there is very long and very hard. I mean, who wants to work really hard all day to come home to a woman that looks like a broom? Men rather stay single. They rather spend their time and money on social media and the crypto markets than spending it on a girlfriend they actually don't want to be with. This is their way of living the dream. Life is miserable when you live it alone, but at least you can YOLO. And after all, it's not that miserable once you get used to it. So, YOLOing into the markets is the hopium. And as we know, hope dies last, but it dies. That's it for today. If you found this depressing, please give the video a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to the channel if you like to see me again. And if you want to actually support me, you can buy me a coffee. The link to do so is down in the description. That's it for today. See you next time.